I don't want to stay any longer because I know that even in 5 years' time or even in 2 weeks' time, there's nothing gonna change.
Yeah.
Then what's the point?
You're coming in with two perspectives. One, I managed to get a job during COVID. Another one is I'm not sure even if I can have a job tomorrow.
If I go out there, I give, I send my resume and so many companies want me. That proves my worth.
Yeah.
Not so much of me staying here and I have to do this, it's my integrity to prove something before I leave. But what is there to prove?
How do you contextualize trust? And this is where I think we don't have enough tools to understand how to build trust.
If this company also don't hear me, go somewhere else. If this company also don't hear me, I start my own company.
Hey everyone, welcome to the A to Z podcast. So originally we were named Ordinary Podcast, but that was a bit hard to introduce to people. So A to Z podcast is where we share about topics surrounding Gen Z, as we also break down everything in between this. And today we have two close friends of mine, Shereen and Joy. Shereen is actually a DEI specialist with vast experience in corporate training, helping people just bridge that generational gap. Joy, she is your marketing girly, Gen Z, marketing and branding, and she has, I don't know, how long have you worked actually? She came up pretty early to
4
work.
years.
4 years now.
5 years, yeah.
So yeah, she's not really fresh anymore. But she's bringing in the Gen Z perspective in today's discussion. And I'm Elton, your host for today. We're going to start with some ideas and topics, and starting with one of the comments on my post, which is, I think, very well thought out. It's a comment by Dr. Darren Ng. So he's actually a CEO of, I think, Petite Maison. And I'll just read out his comment. So for Gen Zs, it's easy to say, I won't settle or I need time off when rent, groceries, or medical bills aren't solely on your shoulders. This privilege, while unspoken, has shaped an attitude that's often perceived as being picky, intolerant to stress, and constantly seeking balance, even in roles that haven't yet tested their limits. The real question is, would this mindset survive if the financial buffer were gone? Because without money to sustain the basics, even the pursuit of happiness takes a backseat to survival. And I commented, yeah, I kind of agree to a certain extent.
That's true. Wow.
So the first thing we're going to actually discuss on is the very general term, Gen Z are entitled.
Wow.
What are your thoughts on that? Let's start with Joy. All right,
Okay.
give you some time to defend yourself.
Defend myself.
You get the girl.
Actually, I wouldn't defend myself.
What's your point of view on
Okay,
this?
I feel like Gen Z, we are entitled in a way because we have choices. In a way where in this workplace, right, everybody's telling us to be like them, or there's so many voices to say like, you have to do this, you have to do that in order to succeed. But I think we grew up in a digital era where we see that a lot of these things are breaking down, and that's when the entitlement comes in and say like, hey, we see that you have been through that, but it didn't work out. So why can't we do it our own way? I think that's where it comes from. That
A different upbringing.
yeah.
Then we have different values, I think.
Yeah.
What about when people say that, like, there's not one thing you say, you don't have to have any commitments, there's no we have that financial buffer of our parents.
Yeah. And I think we are a very lucky generation where, our previous generations has laid out the entire, future for us. And they, I think Gen Y, they already have like savings for their kids. And for us, it's more of like, we don't need to think about all of these because we have, our parents to help us, in situations like this. And I think the previous generation, they have to work for themselves. Work for their family. They have to, when they earn any income, when they start earning, they have to, pay their parents, But for us, it's like, okay, if we earn this amount, it's on us. This is our profit, every month. We don't have any expenses because, we basically stay at home. We don't even need to do groceries, as what you've said. I think that's where we have that confidence and entitlement where, I don't have to care about all these.
She's not even going to defend herself.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. It's happening.
Okay, 0-1. But I'll put it this way. I think like also my mom has shared, and I think Shereen, you have kids, and also you guys are in the sandwich generation, they call it. I need to take care of my parents, I need to take care of my kids. And Gen Z coming in with this kind of attitude and entitlement. it definitely is not easy on the eye end. You're kind of like,
Yes.
it's not fair. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I think it's an evolution, right? Over the different generations. So each generation's mindset impacts the next generation. So my parents had to, and your mom and and me probably around the same generation, but our parents struggled through the war, etc. Right? So for them, it's about ensuring the next generation knows how to survive. So their generation definitely is all about survival. And when we got into the picture, I think the Gen Xers were in between, right? So we grew up with the transition of digitalization, right? So we had everything from tape recorders to floppy disks, to the first mobile phones, which were big as a car battery, and finally we got smartphones. So we transcended across this evolution of mankind, you would say. And I think that is where we start to see that since we struggle, let not the next generation go through the same struggle that we went through, right? So we created our own monsters. It's a bit like,
I love that.
it's a bit like Frankenstein, right? So we created our own monsters without realizing how whether are we truly helping them or not for the future. But it's a different struggle, right? So the Gen Zs have so much at hand. They have so many different gifts and talents and a different way of viewing things. I guess the challenge now, this term entitled, becomes such a stigma, right? And it causes discrimination even in the workplace, right? So when we have that bias and we get into stereotyping and we start to discriminate to a certain extent, to say, I'm not going to hire a Gen Z because they're simply entitled, without actually looking at that individual. What does that individual bring into on the table at work, right? At the table at work.
Can I also put this way that Gen Zs are entitled is like a given? To put it, most Gen Zs will have that safety net, and we are most likely going to think for ourselves, privilege and everything. So when it comes to hiring Gen Zs, maybe like you say, look at what are they good at. Rather than focusing on that
what they're bad at.
entitlement part. But I think that is not something that we should give it as an excuse. And I also heard that there's a lot of people who have worked with Gen Zs that say, hey, they are great, they take initiatives and everything. But some of them, they just don't.
Don't take an initiatives.
They don't take initiatives at all. So you got this very vast,
extreme,
extremes of you got really entrepreneurs, innovative, people, and then you got those that are just, I'm just gonna have that work-life balance. I just want to do my thing. How do you balance between finding the right talent? Sorry, this is actually for you, Shereen.
Okay. I guess one way is to really go deep into their purpose and motivation, right? So probably I see a lot of the younger generation have not actually discovered their purpose and their vision. So if they don't have that, then they're just going with the flow, right? So as long as I can live comfortably, I can take my holidays, and there's also this popular pop culture, right? It's all about you. You don't have to stress. What is the cut? Not the cut of the
breaking
the
point.
breaking point. The breaking point. Yeah, that's the word there. For going the extra mile.
Tipping point, a lot of people say.
The tipping point. Yeah. So, but end of the day, how to look for that talent is really that conversation piece that you need to have. And it doesn't help because with AI, and who's writing these prompts for AI interviews are actually the Gen Xers. So you are not looking at how to catch the talent for the future and transform for the future, right?
I think another thing is, like you mentioned, what are the motivations?
Motivators also.
Yeah, what are motivators? And I would think in this generation, our motivation for a lot of us is money.
That's not wrong.
That's not wrong. I have a lot of friends who say, I come to work you think I want to come to work, I just want to work for the money. I'm here for the pay. You're not going to pay me, no matter how well you motivate me, the pay is not there, I'm going to leave. What do you say about that? What do you think are your motivators?
I feel like if you're fresh out of uni, definitely money will be like your number one because, it's your first time earning and then like this is all yours. Imagine that amount of money, right? But after a few years in the market, you'll feel like, okay, hey, why are we not satisfied? And why
Very good point.
what is it that we value? And that's when you see a lot of Gen Zs, right, changing jobs so often. And because like what you have said, it's really the purpose, right? And I feel like this generation, Gen Z, right, it's a lot of purpose-driven motivators, where I think it's also because in uni, we have a lot of purpose and passion projects, that's where the picture comes in.
Our lecturer says, find your purpose, then come to work.
Yeah.
Don't follow your
Don't
purpose.
follow your purpose.
Do my work.
That's the thing.
That's
So
the
I
thing.
feel like I don't even talk about like uni, right? Even in my high school, they already started teaching us about purpose, passion, transformation, all of these, And imagine coming into the workplace and you're like, hey, this is not what I've learned. You're telling me to come to the work, come to work and you cannot leave at 6. You have to stay longer because you need to be loyal to the company. You need to and you're like, no, this is not my purpose. I am way bigger than this. And that's when, all the entitlement and say like, okay, I'm gonna change my job. And but if you hop to another job, it's the same thing. Because you haven't found what you're actually good at and what you actually like.
Yeah.
I think what I'm hearing is
Nice.
when we are brought up and our parents, our early education, even into our university, we are taught of to look for something more than that, because
You are more than you.
you are more than you.
Yeah.
And you do, hey, follow your passion, this and that. But
Yes.
once you reach the society, you're just like, pop,
And a lot of, I feel like, in 4 years, a lot of employers think like money can keep them. However, that's not the case. If it's money, it's easy. You can just settle, easily. But if you're telling, I'm going to give you 200%. I heard a case, my friend, the employer wants to give him a 200% increase.
Wow.
And he still left.
Yeah.
Because that's not what he wants to do. Like,
It's not slave.
you can give me a lot of money, but it will be the same old thing.
I hate
don't
my
want
job, I
that.
hate my life. No amount of money is gonna.
Yeah, I think Gen Z is like that.
But I think where here, if I may hop on that, Joy, is really where social media, pop culture has actually separated the two, right? You want to pursue your passion and purpose, you may not be financially sound, right? And it's not worth the money that you are getting to sacrifice your entire life, and there's no passion and purpose. So I think this is where there is this disconnect. And it should be brought together, right?
Oh,
to find
that's
that, in a very cliche term, is your ikigai, right? So, but you are right. Without how can you find your purpose and serve your full purpose if you have a family member who's sick at home?
Yeah, that's
Right? Who's going to pay the bills? And and also these days where sometimes it's just not enough. So I think it also goes down to that conversation. How do you bridge that gap and do a little bit of connection to look at this purpose? What's their true purpose, and how would it be that today in the when you are being employed and I need you to stretch, it will help you to serve that purpose. Yeah. So if not, there's always going to be that disconnect. I'm not willing to stay beyond 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock or work on the weekends because that's not my purpose. That's not how I see my life. But that's not how you see your life today. But what about the life that you are building for tomorrow?
Building for tomorrow.
Yeah.
That term doesn't I feel like it doesn't really exist for Gen Z.
Gen Z,
Because it's more like we can't even survive today. Why are we thinking about tomorrow? Even 5 years from now. A lot of them ask, hey, Guy, what are you gonna do 5 years from now? And you're like,
I don't even want to do 5 weeks from now.
exactly.
And it's not your fault, right? Because you are the epitome of survival from COVID. We were all working towards building tomorrow, and then COVID hit.
+2, +2, +2.
Yes.
Wow,
So it's like, what's the point of thinking of tomorrow if we can't even survive today? However, that is where, because you got stuck in that era, you start to see that perspective from that era, right? But whereas Gen X or Gen Y, millennials, they had life before COVID.
That's true.
And then they went through COVID, and then now they start to think about how can we get better for tomorrow. So that there needs to be a bit of a bridge there.
Mm.
I think, okay, so when you're talking about bridge the gap, I think this is something that corporates have been trying really hard to, trying to understand. I don't think so they actually want to, fire us or not work with us. They want us to work.
They can't control us.
Yeah.
Control, yeah.
I think that's something we'll talk about later about control. But I think right now is, like you mentioned, like for me, I graduated during the COVID pandemic, like my university, my last year was, okay, we're done. Okay, I guess I'm graduated.
That's it. Off the
Yes.
off button.
Yeah.
Shut down.
I think for you, you entered university in a...
No. I ended uni on the last year of COVID as well.
Oh,
so
okay,
it's the
okay.
same too.
Same, around the same.
And I'll put it this way, the way we have been taught to communicate also is a lot different, because during the pandemic, we actually have done a lot of online and Zoom, and everything has moved remote.
Yeah.
And now sometimes I get this from people. It's like, why do people not want to meet face to face? Why does our Gen Z like to text? They don't want to pick up calls. They don't want to meet face to face. This could be an email. Is something that has come up a lot. And in bridging the gap, the first thing has to be understanding expectations. I'll put it this. Let's let Shereen share first. What are the expectations that you guys have for us? What are ways that you have done that? Why have I done this? And Gen Zs are not reciprocating.
I think before even that understanding is to have that awareness that we are different. Yeah. So because we are different doesn't mean that you have to accept me and I have to accept you. So we just have to acknowledge that we work differently, we respond differently, and we also have different levels of resilience, right? And by having that awareness, then you can open up the conversation to understand further. So generally, we can say, okay, Gen Zs are, prefer virtual communication, etc. But then, when you get into a project in a base together in a team, that's where we have to iron out a little bit how are we going to work together. So by understanding, okay, I have a Gen Z in my team, I have a Gen Y, I have a senior team member, and they all work differently. So first and foremost, how do we even establish that trust among us? Because we have different levels of trust, right? So Gen Z has set expectations for their manager, and they are also evaluating whether this manager is worth my time. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of 360 reviews and 360 feedback, but it shows us what we already know. Yeah.
It's more of just, I think also when it comes to corporate, Gen Zs tend to, sugarcoat a lot of things, because they might think that it's using it as a performance review. Like, if you 360, you ask me all these things, will it be used back against me? And I will answer in a very...
ChatGPT that.
So
we know the proper answers to get our increment, but after that you don't know.
Yeah,
So
you know the
that's what we want to hear.
Yeah.
right.
I feel like that's something Gen Z knows. And Gen Z are also people person. We know, we connect with people very well. And yeah, if AI can give the best answers, we would just use AI. It wouldn't be coming from our hearts. Because if anything that comes from our heart, right, like what you said, it might be used against us.
Or you might not like to hear it.
Yes. Or you might not like to hear it. And and the ultimate goal is to get increment, right? Then I wouldn't get my goal. I wouldn't achieve my goal. So what's the point? Yeah.
If you see any Gen Z's group chat, right, we get cancelled in a second, man.
Yeah, better not read. That's very true.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to expectations, just now she said, Gen X, you have these kind of tools to manage expectations. But then now Gen Zs are not giving the right input. So it's like giving ChatGPT input that, doesn't make sense. And they're asking it to find a solution.
Correct.
So I think today, Joy, what's our Gen Z's expectation towards work?
Expectations. Okay.
Work
Work
expectations.
expectation. I think for me personally, I'm not sure about the entire Gen Z, but for me, I value flexibility a lot, and I like freedom. And if you give me enough, this trust of like, okay, Joy, I give you that flexibility, to plan out your time and this is the goal that I want you to achieve maybe in 3 days. I will do it for you. But if you micromanage or like, Joy, I need you to be here at this time and I need to see you that you're working on this project, I would be rebellious. I would say, you want me to do it? Then I don't do it. You want to micromanage me? I don't do it. Because I feel like if you don't trust me enough, what's the point of hiring me?
Yeah, yeah. So that's where the different level of trust and the different understanding of what trust is all about. Yeah.
So I think then this brings me to actually one of the points which I want to say is the criticism of Gen Z actually more about something else other than just work ethic, I think in this case.
Like the criticism of Gen Z.
Yeah.
The criticism coming from others.
From others about Gen Z. Because I don't think so. What I've been hearing, from everyone is we are willing to work.
We are.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I think it's a bit of like the analogy of trying to fit a round peg into a square hole, right? So, or vice versa. So it's where the first level of even high performance is whether we have respect and trust. Yeah. So, and, respect comes about differently as well. We've brought up in a generation where greetings are very important. So that shows respect. Right? But in the younger generation, greetings take a different form.
Sup.
Yeah. Hey, bro. What's up? Hey, bro, even your manager can be bro. Yeah. But we grew up in a generation where you have to make sure you use, surnames and using the designation and titles.
But I realized that a lot of like boomers, they want to be young. They tell us like, hey, we are actually as young as you. Don't have to be so formal.
Yeah.
But if we actually do that, like, hey, bro, what's up?
Disrespected.
And then they feel disrespected. So I feel like, it's also the expectations that we have to manage.
I think it comes about the trust and authenticity of what each generation wants, right? So I think Gen Z is a little bit more blatant and upfront of their expectations. And to be honest, I think Gen X and boomers, or the most senior ones, are finding it a challenge to not even switch, to understand where they stand. How is it if I say, hey, bro, I feel that I'm not being respected, and is there a boundary? Is there a line that needs to be drawn? Then how do I exert my authority to get things done? So they are sending mixed signals. So then Gen Z won't know how to respond to it.
Yeah.
So, if you have a certain way of working, I believe that is your authentic self. And it may not work all the way, but you want to adjust and get that buy-in. Yeah. So maybe call me bro after office hours, but during office hours, call me sir.
Oh.
I
mean, if they were to say that upfront, then we would do it.
Yeah.
You would say, hey, sir.
But I don't want to be talking to you after work.
I don't want to pick up your calls after work.
After 6, sorry.
Not even 6.
I would say 6, now it's 9 to 6. So
I mean, not
give
even
it at
6.
6.
Gen Z
just for the
checks
sake
out,
of
mentally checks out at 5:30.
mentally checks out.
You blue tick me, yeah?
We all are blue ticks.
Even
So you don't see.
Gosh.
So I think the next part we want to go into is actually what are the expectations of Gen Z and Gen Y and Gen X, outside of work, when last time, there's always this term, workplaces we are family at work.
We are family.
And I think Gen Zs hate this term, we are not family, because I think our family or friends, we are unconditional most of the time. You need something, I'll show up, but work is purely transactional and for the most part until you build up that trust.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that, coming from Gen X?
Yeah, okay. So I think we have to understand, in an organization, it's business first. right? I have this organization because I'm running a business.
Mhm.
And how clear is my vision and purpose of my business may not resonate with everybody. So we have to allow that to happen, right? Some people will resonate with it more, some lesser. Now, the challenge comes about in the way of working, your everyday way of working and your everyday work ethic. So how do we bridge that communication, right? So it's not about me texting you every day after 6 or expecting you to work every day after 6, but there is something that we need to do as a team to bring about that business, that KPI. How can we work on this? So that clarification versus trying to exert the authority. Yeah. So I'm sure Gen Z, if the younger generation, if they come in and they understand, okay, this is because we are doing for this and this is the vision and the purpose of it, right? And then you work around what is acceptable. Yeah. Because Gen Z, what has been said about is those boundaries, right? So the term boundaries, it's like like the borders of countries, non-negotiable, right?
It's my rights.
It's your rights, you know. And however, the most senior ones in the organization, they are responsible to bring in the numbers, the business, etc. So everyone's butt is on the line. Yeah. So which is your least risk collateral damage? Yeah.
That would bring to like the sense of urgency for Gen Z and the sense of urgency for the senior ones are so different.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it might be like a very huge like crisis for the senior ones, and Gen Z are like, we can deal with it tomorrow.
Yeah, because you survived through COVID.
And
you survived
yeah,
through
we
COVID.
survived through COVID
You
and we
graduated through COVID. You got
Exactly.
a job through COVID.
exactly we
Yeah.
managed.
Yeah. And
And we're like, this is no big deal.
no big deal. Gen X, boomers, and even some of the most senior Gen Ys, they were in survival mode in COVID. They couldn't. They were holding on to their jobs.
That's true.
So you're coming in with two perspectives. One, I managed to get a job during COVID. Another one is
I
like, I'm
lost-
not sure even if I can have a job tomorrow.
Wow.
I think people don't really think about it in these terms. I think this is the first time I actually hear that. We always talk about how we navigated through COVID, but never really thought of how the job security was during COVID that actually shapes how we think of work today.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So I think at the end of the day, we always coming to find a middle ground. And let's start from Gen Z. What hearing all of this, what are some expectations and some middle ground that we can actually, we can compromise a bit, and hopefully you can compromise a bit that you would hope to be in a workplace.
I think for Gen Zs in a workplace, the ultimate one is definitely purpose and then trust. And I believe that if you were to hire a Gen Z, right, they will get the job done. They will get the job done. That's a if, you give them the amount of trust and you give them that assurance like, hey, I know that you're working on it. I think that is the middle ground where you don't question so much. You give them the space to grow, and that's when they really, fly.
But so this is another thing that will come up is where's the line that comes between if you can't get your work done? That is a very big concern,
Yeah. What if you don't get your work done?
Because in business there's no do-overs.
Yeah.
You fuck up, you fuck up. Right. So what
What
do you
if you don't get your job done?
Yeah.
I feel like that is not in my dictionary.
She gets a job done.
I want to get my job done. That's the thing. I'm like,
And I think this is a very important aspect for us to understand. Gen Z, if they cannot do it, they'll tell you, no, I'm not going to do it.
I'm not gonna,
right?
yeah, that's true.
Because I know I'm not going to be successful doing it. But we perceive, Gen X, why don't you even try? Yeah, don't you? And riding on to that trying, you will only try if you can trust the system, the process, or the person that's asked you to try. And this is where I think we don't have enough tools to understand how to build trust, right? And how do you contextualize trust? right? So I like this term that I used to use in my sessions, coaching sessions as well, the ABCDs of trust. Trust is earned, right? Which is an E. Before you get to an E, you need an A, B, C, and D. One, do you have the ability? Have you shown me the ability to do things, right? So A is ability, B is benevolence. Do you have the integrity? That means if I say, all right, you work from home, I know that 9:30, not even 9, 9:30, you are online.
Yep.
That I can reach out to
Yep.
you. So the level of integrity that
Has
we
to be-
understand each other. C is connectedness or even communication. How are we communicating through this? Am I coming to you and say, all right, Joy, we talked about this 2 days ago. How is your progress versus what has been done?
Yeah.
How is your progress? So getting that communication going and knowing that maybe it's not a face-to-face, maybe I can just check in with you on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
And
I think she really knows Gen Z.
Of course.
Crazy.
That's the reason she is here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, like, this is what we want.
What?
Like, don't call me, just text.
Just text, yeah. And D is really, just to wrap up, is D is dependability. Are you reliable? If you say you're going to be there on Monday, be there on Monday. Now, how do we facilitate this, as managers to be able to check in, to have that conversation and to understand, okay, what are the patterns that we each have? Yeah. So I think that's where sometimes we say we want to build trust or you have to trust me, but how?
Mm.
That's like a whole system.
Wow, that's amazing. I think it was both ways. So from the upper ups, this is something that, hey, you need to follow this framework, and you can actually build trust with your Gen Z. So actually anyone for that matter.
Anyone.
Even Gen Zs, should do that.
Correct. So
build
Gen
trust.
Zs, now that you know, this is how you build trust with, now follow this framework. If you want to really, I think trust, like I said, at the end of the day, is earn.
Yeah.
Do something, you get something.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So thank you so much. We'll take a quick break. And
All right.
We'll get back to the second half.
Okay.
All right. Welcome back. And just now we were talking about earning that trust. I think now something that I hear and I see that's happening is when a leader leaves, the whole team leaves with the leader, and it's like one by one. But now the question is, are people loyal to the leader, not to the organization anymore? If you can just...
I feel like it's very true
Mhm.
because I feel like for Gen Z, we work with people. And I think people matters a lot to us because that's where we learn to be. We get empowered, we get inspired. And it's always the person and not so much of the organization. Because I feel like you can go anywhere and you will earn the same amount of money. You'll be working the same, day-to-day task.
Yeah.
But who is the one that is driving, the whole project? Who is actually, giving you that guidance matters a lot to us. Because if we were to follow a leader that we don't buy, then we would leave because it's a waste of my time. You get what I mean? It's more of, if we want to follow you, that's why we stay. And that will also be why, sometimes when Gen Z leaves the company, the only struggle is always, I don't want to leave because I have a very good leader. And it's not so much of, I don't want to leave because I like my job.
You leave because you don't like your job in the first place, okay?
Yeah. But it's more of like, we have, Gen Z are also people,
We have attachment.
We have attachment issues. And I think good leaders, they can actually empower Gen Z and they can make Gen Z think of not leaving. That's how it works.
Isn't that like gaslighting?
Not gaslighting.
Convince.
Okay,
I'll put it
that's
this.
a very
You're looking
good
at
word,
good
convince.
leaders that they inspire you and they convince you to stay. But how long would you stay with this leader if the organizational values and purpose is not aligned?
Align. And yeah, that's also why.
What would be the tipping point in this case?
What would be the tipping point? I feel like for leaders, okay, if for my case, like I just resigned, and I had that very long struggle of whether I want to leave because my head of department and my leader was really good, and she trusts me. She gave me that space to grow. She helped me and guided me through a lot of projects, and it shows how much she value me. And that's why I struggle a lot to whether to leave or not, because I know that everything will fall on her if I were to leave and there's no one to help her. But I still chose to leave because the organization don't have that system or that purpose anymore, and it doesn't serve me, and I don't want to stay any longer, because I know that even in 5 years time or even in 2 weeks time, there's nothing gonna change.
Yeah.
Then what's the point? But if I were to see like, okay, there is a chance or there is a hope where things can be different, then I would stay.
So it's not necessarily the organization's fault, but it's more towards, this is your organization is going to be this way, and it doesn't serve my values and purpose anymore.
Yeah.
Right? That is when that's tipping point. You say this is something that I have to move out from.
Yes.
Right?
It's like a whole different season of my life.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I think, something very interesting that you brought up, that we all have different seasons in our life, right? So how do we understand which season are you in your life that will serve your purpose, right? So you have the organization's vision, purpose, mission, etc. And your leaders will also have their own purpose and mission and vision, right? So, and how does it connect to your own vision as well? And how we operate on a day-to-day is the values that you bring to the table. So your leaders may have different values, and you may have different values, and that's where, whether you get connected or you get disconnected is based on this gap that you see.
And I think the word comes up last time, especially with Gen X, as loyalty. I mean, what does loyalty mean nowadays?
Yeah, to Gen X.
To Gen X. I know what it means to Gen Z, right? We are loyal to the purpose, but what does Gen X think of loyalty right now?
Oh, I think loyalty has a little bit been fragmented also these days, right? And you have to go back to what is your own value system that you truly look at, right? So, and Gen X main struggle is the difference in the environment those days, right, versus these days as well. So I think in previous generations, or even before COVID, right? Or even before the digitalization era, there's this high loyalty even to the products that you use, etc. Right? And but today is very different, right? We look at what works faster, what works better. So while we may not, we may hold on to that loyalty value, how does it represent itself? Yeah, it may change.
Because I've been seeing like previous generations, it's very common to have people work 10, 20 years in the organizations. And it's a given. That is the company where you intern, and that's the company where you retire.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yes.
That is crazy.
And it's still existent in some organizations today.
Yeah, but for now, we are looking at 3 years.
Less than that.
I mean, that's a general lifespan of 3 years. I mean,
Yes.
put it this, first year you're in, you're here to experience, see what's about the company. Second year, you're here to prove, here to grow. And then the third year, you see whether this is a company I want to stay further. Yes or no. But most of them, by the 5th year, they're going somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right.
But when you said that the second year is where you want to prove something, right? I feel like for a lot of Gen Z, they really know their identity and they know their values, and there's nothing to prove. And that's why I feel like a lot of Gen Zs are hopping way faster, even 9 months, 8 months. I see that happening because maybe they learn everything in 6 months.
Yes.
And the remaining 2 months, they're actually looking for the other job already.
Yeah.
Because they know I don't have to prove anything. If I go out there, I give, I send my resume, and so many companies want me. That proves my worth.
Yeah.
Not so much of me staying here and I have to do this. It's my integrity to prove something before I leave. I think that's a lot of Gen Y where they stay because they haven't proved yet. But what is there to prove?
Wow. Okay.
Okay, this is something interesting. For me, I would say I would take a while to but let's just hear from Shereen. You've been
Okay.
from the band.
That's quite interesting to digest as well. And I think it's because simply of the focus points, right? Where you are on a different accelerated vision of yourself, right? If you look on social media, everyone's a millionaire by 30.
They
Right?
retire by 30.
Yeah, and I'm wondering like what am I still doing? So there's this like, oh no, okay, never mind, But that is what we've been conditioned. So how can organizations use these patterns and behaviors to retain employees, right? So it's no longer about, okay, you're a marketing exec, you grow into a assistant manager, you grow into a senior manager, and then, give you that. But what is new for you? What is different for you? What is it that you're looking out that I cannot offer you here today, right? So it's about where we can try to retain this person, but still give a different experience that they want, right? So it could be something like, and I see this a lot in the inclusion projects or inclusion activities in organizations where they need to understand that, okay, a Gen Z or a Gen Y, or the younger tenured employees, they are going through different seasons in their lives. So now that they have this season, maybe, starting a family, etc., how can we support them? How can we help them? Giving them something else. And then when they return, what else can we do for them? Right? Doesn't mean that, okay, I've had a kid and then I'm returning. I still have to work how I'm working before that. I may have different priorities and I expect the organization to understand me.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a DEI initiative in the organization. So how open is Gen Z or Gen Y to the conversation, and how open is their managers and leaders to this
That's very
conversation?
true. I feel like Gen Z would always be open, but it's really up to whether they are okay to take it and how do we find that middle ground.
Yeah.
But I would say, like you say, even now, 8-9 months is even less than a year. But next year, my New Year resolution, new company.
But I believe, but I believe even
Why?
that-
Why?
Yeah, why?
Yeah. So what and why keeps these people? Let's say for Shereen's case, how does organization help to retain these talents? What can they do, or why?
First thing would be hear us out. Hear us out. And I feel like a lot of organizations out there might not hear. They might listen and they don't understand why are you acting this way? Why are you demanding for more? I feel like Gen Zs are very brave also. I would give a shout out to Gen Zs. Thank you for being brave. Yeah.
Pat yourself on the back.
Pat yourself on the back, because I feel like you always voice out. Gen Zs always voice out when something is not right. And because we grew up in a world where a lot of systems die and a lot of systems break down, and we see that. And whenever we see like, okay, hey, this company, you are reaching there. We are trying to, tell you or, voice out. They might not take it and say like, hey, you're just in for what, 1 year? Few
What do you
months?
know?
What do you know? And that's when Gen Z feel like, okay, since, even small little things you don't trust, you don't want to listen to me, what's the point?
Yeah.
That's when they start to look out and say, if I'm not valued here, I'm not, heard here, I might as well go somewhere where I'm heard.
But how sure are you that you'll be heard somewhere else?
That's another whole topic. But if you're talking about now, I believe for me, myself, I've always been the one that voices out. I don't shy away. I'm not afraid. I feel like a lot of Gen Zs, we're not afraid to voice out. And if this company don't hear, that's why it keeps 5 months, 6 months. This company don't hear me, next one.
Yeah, I'll take
This
the chance somewhere else.
Yeah, if this company also don't hear me, go somewhere else. If this company also don't hear me, I start my own company. You get what I mean? We grew up in a way we have so many choices.
Yes.
There's so many way out. And that's the quote we always use, like, if you work, there's always money. So no matter where I work, I also get money. Might as well I go somewhere where I'm heard.
Yeah. And I think also to jump in on that is you can always make a quick buck somewhere, you know, and versus and you have that risk attitude that you're willing to, and it's a calculated risk, you're willing to put it down to try. Yeah. So even if I don't have a job, I can, you know, become a driver, I can do tuition, I can do something. I can write content, I can go on Fiverr, right? Or you know, launch a course on Kajabi. So there's so many options. But you know, in my time, your parents will tell you better don't leave without a job, you know, because who's going to pay your next month's rental, right? And it's a tough one for organizations because organizations have structure. So do organizations view their structure as shackles, or is the structure allowing them to you know, maneuver things towards the needs of the business? Yeah. So I had one case where a Gen Z said that you know, she needed to work from home because she had to care for the parents, etc. And then somebody, you know, the manager said, it's okay for a couple of months, but we need you to find a more, you know, permanent solution because it's HR policy. So the moment you throw some, you know, big word like that, a bomb, what? So you as the manager is telling me this because it's a HR policy. You're not listening to my struggles.
Yes.
Right?
So what are the expectations that, you know, companies should have come into this new era of hiring? Because Gen Zs are one thing.
Gen Alpha is another thing.
Yes. Their whole lives are on social media.
That is
So, but let's target Gen Z
Gen
first. So,
Z,
what are the expectations for companies when it comes to hiring and retaining people? Should they change? You know, is there something that they have to switch in terms of HR policy when it comes to this new generation hiring? And also, one more thing: how does it affect the existing workforce? Because you cannot be hiring and firing and, you know, have a separate rules for Gen Z.
Yep. Yes.
And it's not fair.
Yeah.
And it's-
that's
And you're right, no separate rules for Gen Z because all the other generations are learning from Gen Z. You know, they are saying that, hey, if she wants work-life balance, I also
want it.
deserve work-life balance. I deserve it, right? So it's actually evolving the entire job culture, work culture at workplace as well. Yeah. So back to your questions, you know, question on how do organizations try to get the best talent, retain the best talent, etc. I think there's no one magic formula that can work, right? One is you will not be able to retain everybody. Yeah. So you still need that turnover because you want to always have the best of the best working with you all the time. And people outgrow organizations, right? They outgrow jobs because, you know, if this job is not available for me here, the next phase of my life, I want something different. So they will move. But how can you make it a good experience? Right? So if I'm no longer working here, can I recommend somebody to work here? Would I recommend somebody to work here? So it's about the employee experience. Just like how we talk about customer experience, are we talking enough about employee experience? Yeah.
So now you should actually turn around. You're not supposed to get Google reviews on your company. You should get reviews from your employee.
you should listen.
Which is on Glassdoor, right?
But
I love Glassdoor. Come
How
on.
accurate is Glassdoor? That's a short segue.
Okay.
How accurate is Glassdoor?
I'm not sure.
Sure either, right? So like when you for instance, Google review, right? If you get either a fantastic experience or a terrible experience, then you will use Google review. So same thing with Glassdoor as well.
So the interesting thing that was brought up, should we allow employees to interview our employers?
Of course.
All right.
Because always when you go into a company, the employers interview whether the employer is the right fit.
Yeah.
It never has been the case where the employer interview the employers or the staff there and actually go and see whether is this the right environment fit for me before I actually sign. And after a few months, this is not what I want. This is not what, my place. Hence, you have people leaving after probation, 5-8 months.
True. And I think you have the opportunity because employers or, you know, hiring managers will normally ask, do you have any questions?
But are they true to answer those questions? Are they honest about their responses? So that's a whole other can of worms. But that's an idea that might actually help, you know,
Yeah.
Because we always talk about 360, two-way
Yeah.
communications.
Yeah.
But when it comes to job, it's always a one-way thing.
Yeah. So I think this is where sometimes some of the behavior changes we need to observe, right? So I would encourage, right, Gen Z or, whoever's going out there for a new job, arrive much earlier for your interview, not because you will be late, but because you want to observe what's happening at the reception area of the organization. Is the reception area open, calm? And you will hear things that happen, right? How do they treat the delivery boy? How do they treat the kakak or the tea lady that comes about, and things like that? Look at the, we observe a lot
The
of things on
vibe.
social
Vibes.
media, right? What kind of vibe you get? Sometimes, even things like going to the loo, right? Go to the bathroom and see how they value the employee's experience in the bathroom. Right?
But I feel like Gen Z is the one physical
Yeah.
physical
Yeah.
interviews.
Interviews.
That's what
Yeah.
I realized also. A lot of Gen Z because
So you miss out on that.
yeah,
You miss out on the vibe.
yeah. So I think Gen Zs out
Yeah,
there,
so-
you really, when employers ask you to go
to office.
for physical meet, it's not because they want to evaluate you or what, but it's also a chance for you to
Yeah.
Evaluate them back.
evaluate them
them.
and see like, hey, is this the place I want to be for
If
the
they
next 3 years?
if they can't even provide toilet paper, do you think you will get a good increment?
Good quality toilet paper, guys.
No, after this, we will give you a checklist. So when you go for interviews, do they have enough toilet paper? Do they have a bidet?
How's the pantry like?
Okay, this is but when we talk about that, so I think that's a good point where yes, you don't have to interview them, but go early or even go and visit the place, see how they treat the customers. You as a customer, go how they treat you, the
Yeah.
whole experience. Speaking about customer experience and now employee experience, this one thing that we always talk about when it comes to work is mental health.
Oh, okay.
I mean, work and stress, these two things is
Tied
definitely
up.
going to be tied up. But the level of it, I think Gen Zs have a different
Approach.
tipping point, I would say.
Mm.
We don't allow it. So I think, like what you said, people last time have higher tolerance towards stress.
Mm.
It's something that work is stress and there's nothing to go about it. But Gen Z is like, it's giving
I feel
anxiety,
like it's giving. Yeah, but I feel like for Gen Z, we are more aware about mental health.
Yes.
And I think it's not so much of high tolerance also because maybe in the previous generations, they are not taught. So they are not aware about this.
Yes.
So they thought that they have high tolerance. But when it backfired and they see like, hey, why am I acting this way? Why am I so, fatigued? I cannot work, but I still need to go to office, because they're not aware that this is mental health issues. This
Yeah.
is something that is leading to depression, that's leading
Yeah.
to anxiety. They don't know. But for Gen Z, we are brought up in a place where we are taught about mental health. We are taught that, if you're feeling tired, rest. If you're feeling sad, talk it out. Not so much of, don't tell, work.
Yeah.
But yet again, Gen Zs are the one with the highest mental health
Because we are
issues in the
aware.
workplace.
Yeah.
So we shout about it whenever we
yeah.
are aware about it. So we shout about it. And
yeah.
I see because I was job searching, right? So I see like, when, the companies list down, there is unlimited leaves or like, we give you priority for your mental health. So if you're feeling tired, rest. So companies are actually adapting to it because they know that Gen Zs are very aware about this.
Yeah.
And they're okay with that because maybe in, their generations, they lack of that part,
Yeah. Yeah.
You had a story you wanted to share.
Oh yes, so my don't know which company that I was in. So there was this Gen Z that suddenly didn't come to office, One day she just MIA. And we were like all the Gen Zs are like in a group lah. So we were just discussing like I think it's because he's depressed, I think because, all these. However, the senior ones, they are more of like this guy cannot, I'm gonna, review him. If anyone, they have a very different approach. So for the just senior ones, they are more of like, how I'm gonna deal with this guy, But for Gen Z, we are more of like, how can we help him? Is he really struggling,
Yeah.
What's up with him? Is he really depressed? Is something wrong? We are very afraid that anything bad can happen to him because we know how it leads to, suicidal
Yeah.
and things like that. But for the senior ones, I see that drastic difference in the company, and I feel very upset because it's not that they the senior ones, they don't want to talk about it, but because they don't have that part in their lives, and they missed out on that also.
Yeah. I think also not because they don't have that part, but also because sometimes even organizations, they just ride on the latest trends, right? So you will see a lot, or I've seen a lot of organizations that have mental awareness day, and then they have mental health leave, etc. But they don't have the resources or the support that needs behind it.
Yep.
For instance, if you have a mental health leave, right, in your policy, do you have an in-house counselor? Do you have do the employees have access to therapists? Do employees have access to a psychiatrist? Right? Because who's diagnosing this? HR? No, of course not.
Self-diagnosed.
HR is not equipped to diagnose this. And for leaders and managers, how then do they are they able to differentiate between day-to-day stress, day-to-day anxiety, which is normal, right? When you have to present to a CEO, you go to toilet 10 times, right? But that doesn't mean you have to take MC. But because you have an anxiety, just as related to that situation, so you need to deal with that situation. And when it crosses into chronic anxiety, chronic disorders, who's diagnosing this? Right? So we have the surface level in terms of policies and awareness. We need to be aware of this. But what is the support that we are giving? Who is going to access this? For instance, very simple, right? So for in your case, Joy, this particular person, do we have the emergency contact? Who has access to this emergency contact? Does the manager of this person have the emergency contact to be able to contact that person and say, hey, this person has not turned up for work for 2 days. How do we get in touch with him?
So for that case, they managed to reach out to he or her mom. So then she did mention that he's in the hospital somewhere. But the organization was very against it, and they were shouting on how to properly deal with him. That's when I feel like a lot of Gen Z sees the red flag.
Because it's not overnight.
It's not overnight.
He would have had some symptoms, some signals earlier, and
maybe he's already asking for help.
But we don't understand him enough, and we don't have the resources.
I think it's very important, even for like when you say previously we want to implement DEI, but is the company ready for DEI? And in this case, you want to implement mental health, support systems. Is your company ready to actually, fork out some more money? Most of the time, it's more money. It's investment in your employees and everything. And most companies will say, just work, now I need to fork out more money. I hire you to do the work. Now I need to hire someone to help you to do the work. Well, then I need to hire a therapist for the therapist. Just playing.
Yes.
So where does the line stop? That's very important. Where does the line stop?
Where does the line stop? So back to what are organizations all about? Business first, right? So where is the balance of what are you investing for your people, right? And if you have to do a diagnosis of your teams, right? Of your population in your organization, the people in your organization. What are the patterns that they are most susceptible towards, right? So if you're an organization that's working with US times, right? Different time zones, you will definitely need to look at different leave policies that's able to support employees from Malaysia that's supporting different time zones. They cannot be operating from a Malaysian time zone. Right. So, but then again, there's also that differences there. How do you bridge it? So it's not a direct one answer fits all, but organizations need to be sensitive about it and keep working on that dialogue. Keep working on being creative of the solutions. It's not always a HR policy that can solve everything. Sometimes it's just equipping the manager with some skills to be able to have that conversation And hey, you are my manager. You can do certain things. For instance, short-term arrangements, flexible work arrangements, and then we discuss what's next. Yeah. So, and end of the day, back to that trust, right? If this employee, what have they done also to be able for me to give back?
Yeah.
So it's a two-way thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so even like you mentioned Gen X, Gen Y, you actually gone through so much change, from the computer being
Typewriter.
typewriter.
Writer.
Computer being as big as this room to now everything's in our phones. You've gone through like financial crisis and everything.
Yeah,
I think Gen Z is just another thing that you need to change and adapt.
yeah. It's
We
a
cannot-
different war.
Gen Z is a different war.
It's a different war. It's a different battle. Yeah.
But it's something that is, although it's not an event or anything, but it's now we're dealing with people. Now, how can we actually work better with this? Right, before we end, I just want to say, what is one thing that you would like to tell?
Kill.
What's one thing you would like to tell Gen Y and Gen X from a Gen Z perspective? And for you, what is something that you'd advise us that we can actually help each other get to a middle ground?
Okay, I think for Gen Z, I feel just listen to us. Like really, I feel like there's a lot of times where we don't turn around to say anything, but we are very straightforward. We are very upfront about what we want, and if we actually properly stated it out or we asked about it, I just hope that listen to us and see how we can work out, because I feel like Gen Z is all about collaborating. We want to collaborate with you. We don't want to be your minions. We want to be us, okay? We want to collaborate. We don't want to be minions. I think that's one thing for sure.
Yeah. And I think for on the flip side, right? On the other side of the fence.
Listen to us.
We also want to be listened to, but I think the most senior generation, it's about providing a little bit of empathy, but not losing that accountability. So I empathize with you, but hey, work still needs to get done. How are we going to do it? So it's not about how are you going to get it done.
It's how about we?
How are we going to do it? Yeah. So the empathy factor becomes a very important strategic tool, right? So empathy as a strategy. Yeah.
Wow.
All right. Wow. Okay. Thank you so much, Shereen and also Joy.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I love it.
This has been a really quite, there's a lot of things we haven't discussed yet. So if you have any questions or anything you want us to discuss further in the next episode, do drop it in the comments down below. Down below. And we will pick some of them to discuss, and any of the questions, regardless of any generation you're in, you have something burning you want to ask, case specific, we can answer that too.
Yeah.
Bring different perspective to the table. And before we end, don't forget to like and subscribe to the A to Z podcast, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.